No, what they had, it was there. What season?
The desert.
What was the season?
Okay, you're getting there.
She said winter, but it ain't winter.
It's not a season.
So
It's not a season. A period, like a.
There we go.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
The 40 years. Hey, the 40 years. Yeah, I was stressed.
I'm telling you.
I mean, but y'all were there.
We was there, but it was like, oh,
Man.
that's a
Oh,
good
my
one.
goodness.
That's a real good one. All right, this is the word we heard. I'm Robin Cherry here with
Camron Terrell.
and we're going to be talking about leading well by our very own Pastor Scott Lawrence, which was an amazing sermon. So did you want to start and tell us what you got from the sermon for leading well?
Yeah, I think it works well with my current job. I'm an educator, so we have a lot of students. I think we have the biggest school in the South Division right now. Being able to hear Pastor Scott discuss the ways that although you may be a leader and coming after somebody else, the challenges that you face accordingly with that, completely different. Joshua coming right after Moses.
Correct.
Oh my goodness, that's some tough shoes to fill.
Yes.
That's some tough shoes to fill.
That transition, I think for me, like when you come, like what you said, coming to leadership from such a great leader and a transitionary role and wondering about the feedback, right? So one of the things for me that stuck out was that he said, be strong, be courageous. I was like, he said this 3 times. So like, you really do have to be strong and courageous because some of the stuff that you may say that God gives you, the people may not want to receive because it looks different than what it did before.
Yeah.
So you have to be courageous enough to do it in spite of, right? And you have to be strong enough to take whatever feedback is given, right? And still operate in the way that God would have you to operate. So that was one thing. I think another thing was like the consequences of when you don't lead well that I started thinking about. Okay, when I don't lead well, like when you're in leadership, everything that you do or don't do affects everybody.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge responsibility with that, and understanding that there are so many people affected by your obedience directly to God, right? So when you don't do something, like even, in our household, like, when me and my husband talk, we're like, okay, our decisions don't just affect me and you. It affects our children. It affects our neighbors. It affects my parents, his parents, our friends, our community, because what he has put together and the role we have has influence.
Yes.
So just thinking about that made me even want to evaluate how I lead in the roles that I've been given to lead, or honor God, giving me these places, how I lead, and to really evaluate that and make sure I'm aligning with him, right? So that was one thing that stuck with me. I do have a question for you as far as when he talked about leading well, where you have to have vision that's connected to God. Have you personally experienced as a leader, like at work or home life, where like you realize the way you were leading was not connected to God? And if so, what did you do to get back in alignment?
I can say it's definitely in my marriage, and that was very difficult for me. Because, as a husband, as a man, you're supposed to be the leader. You're the head, So being able to sit down and have that conversation with God, like, God, I don't think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing on my part. And like you said, it affects everybody else. I'm raising my next leader, my child. I'm raising raising the next generation of leaders. And if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then I know that she's not getting or reaping the benefits of what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? So for me, what I had to do is sit back and really have a conversation first with myself, like, hey, what you're doing right now is affecting everybody else in this household and the entire family, not just your children, like you said. It's affecting the parents. It's affecting these 2 relationships that have been built by these 2 different groups of families, right? So I had to sit back and have a conversation with myself first, then I had to talk to God. God, what is it that you would have me to do to be able to lead my family to the next place or where we're going to be? Specifically for us, it was making this move to Pearland. We moved a lot around Houston in itself, but being able to move from one side of Houston with no knowing of, hey, where's my next job gonna be at? Where's she gonna be at? Where's mom gonna be at? It completely drove me crazy, and I'm getting upset at everybody in the household. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's going on, but we gotta have faith. But the way that I'm approaching the situation, the way that I'm presenting it to everybody else, is completely different. And it's creating difficulty and strain in the household. So I really had to sit down and have that conversation with God. I was like, what do you need me to do? How do I move? Where do I go? What do I say? Who do I need to talk to? I don't know what to do, and being open with them about that.
That's so interesting. Hearing you say that brought me to something that convicted me in a sermon, which is sometimes in leading well, you also have to know when to follow, right? So for me, with me and my husband, it was more so of, okay, well, this leadership didn't look like the leadership that I was used to from seeing from my father, right? So it was like, the Lord had to sit me down and say, well, Robin, like, even with this, if you look at the way Moses led versus Joshua, completely different.
Completely different.
So he calls people to lead in the way that he wants them to lead. So it's not going to look the same. So he had to sit me down and show me, although this leadership doesn't look like what you're used to, it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Correct.
And this is the leadership that you need for you, which is why I put you with who I put you with, because the other leadership was effective for you during that season in your life. But this leadership here is what's pushing you to where I need you to go.
Yeah.
So, and part of leading well is also knowing when to follow well. And I think sometimes it becomes a struggle being a wife and a mother, because you're called to leadership in so many spaces, like with the kids or at work or amongst friend groups. But then when you're in your home, you have to be able to submit and yield to another leader, right? And so that's why sometimes I always say, oh, it's too many Indians and not enough. I mean, too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? So he was like, oh, okay. So I had to learn when to be an Indian and when to be a chief.
Yeah.
And that was like a struggle, especially like the first couple years of marriage, just because I was like, okay. And then the Lord checked me and was like, for one, did you consult me
Oh, goodness gracious.
about this idea? So pause. Okay. I like, do I keep going? Do I stop? Pause. So the Lord had to check me, because, you know, sometimes when we see it our way, we think our way is right. But I had to realize, like, Lord, I didn't even consult you on this stuff. This is my plan, which I think it looks best with all the stuff I know in this moment. And then when the Lord was like, but Robin, you didn't even ask me. You don't know if it's going to rain tomorrow. You don't know if something going to happen tomorrow. I'm omnipresent.
Yes.
You need to consult me. And if you would have consulted me, I would have told you, you need to shut up this time and let your husband do what he going to do, because what he has a different insight than what you have in this situation. And knowing when to have that that rhythm, I would say, of leading and following, or submitting and you know, surrendering, like knowing, having that good rhythm is ultimately what, I guess, the yin to the yang, that rhythm of where you know your strengths and your weaknesses, you know his strengths and his weaknesses, and then when you put me in the mix, I know how to pull what I need from each one of you during a specific time, because what's right for now may not be right for later.
Ooh, yeah.
So that's what the Lord really, really convicted me on. And I wish I would have learned this so much earlier, because probably wasn't the most difficult, you know, time, or I wasn't the easiest person, or I would have been. And some stuff I look back, I'm like, I made something bigger than what it needed to be, because I didn't consult God. All I had to say is like, okay, Lord, this is what we got. What you want us to do? You know what I mean? Or what you want me to do?